Welcome back to Trash to Treasure. Today I've got a 7100 model Samsung, and it is a very common model of Samsung. They made heaps of these and they are a bloody good TV, but they all have the same problem. So there's different sizes from I think 32 inch all the way up to 85 inch. And they all have edge lighting across the bottom. And what happens is the edge lighting heats up and kind of melts and cracks the acrylic sheet that goes through the center of the TV. And basically the LEDs burn out and it causes certain segments of the TV, the screen, to kind of go dim and sometimes just go completely black. So what I'll do is I'll open this one up, give a bit of a look at the problem, and I've ordered some replacement backlights, and I'm going to go through the process of recreating a brand new acrylic sheet. So this is a 43 inch model. I've actually got a 49 inch of exactly the same model with the same problem, which I might work on later, but that's going to be more challenging to create the right size acrylic sheet. I don't know if I have a donor sheet for that size. It has to be a bit bigger because when you have to break acrylic, it's quite challenging. It's very brittle and you kind of have to score it with a Stanley knife and snap it. I'll show you the process, but it can be a bit dodgy at times. And if you don't make the acrylic sheet to the perfect size, then your TV's kind of a bit stuffed. So I'll go ahead and open this one up and we'll have a look at the issue. So this model is a really interesting design because it has very few screws. Most of the TV is held together with clips. So what I'll do, I've already opened this one up and had a look before I ordered the lights, but so I know that the clips are a bit loose, but basically you just got to get a flathead screwdriver in and pry all of your clips. There you go. So it's also held together with just a few screws and then clips. So really probably the most clip heavy design or engineered TV that I've found on the market ever, frankly. But obviously it's come with this, the design issue of the edge lights. I think because it's such a sleek design, I think that might be a contributing factor as to why it has this reoccurring problem. So rightio, so I've got it down to the sort of base level trim. So there's the outer black trim and then there's this layer of white trim. And honestly, I've cracked a lot of the trim of this model before. Sometimes it's incredibly rigid. As long as you're not snapping it too severely, it would all go back together pretty nicely. As long as you keep your outer trim, all together, you'll be right. Here we go. Right. So we've got it down to the acrylic sheet here. Now I'll just show what I was talking about before. So as you can see here, like there's very clearly a crack there, but you see all the contact points there where the LED has kind of overheated and burnt and cracked the acrylic sheet. So basically I need to make another acrylic sheet this size. What I'll do, because it's kind of two separate issues, right? We've got the lights that need to be changed and then we need a new acrylic sheet. So I've got my lights that come from China. See if I can show you. Happily, because it's a 43, we can manhandle it a bit. It's really good for demonstration. So you can see there the LEDs are fully burnt out. So this is a pretty good example of like the fault. Like it happens a lot. Sometimes it can be just one or two LEDs that causes the issue. But in this particular instance, like you can see there pretty clearly, it's like quite a lot of them. So I'll go through changing the LEDs as well, but I'll do that after I do the acrylic sheet. So, rightio. So I've got here an acrylic sheet. So this is just something that I've taken from I think this is a 55-inch, similar sort of design TV. So I've stripped quite a lot of TVs, and when I do the ones with a cracked screen, sometimes if it's got an acrylic sheet, I'll take it out and store it. So I've got a few in storage just for spare parts. Now, it's important to know that this acrylic, if you put your fingers on it, or if you scratch it in any way or get it dirty, when it lights up, it's just going to like show that a lot. So basically you want to keep it as clean as possible. So you want to be using like a towel maybe if you're going to have to touch it or anything like that. So I'll go get that now so I don't make too much of a mess. I actually put a little scratch on one side just getting it out. So I need to make sure I don't use that side. All right, so I've got my towel here for after. What I'm going to do first is just get a rough outline of the size. Now, it actually, it won't tell you this, but it doesn't have to be 100% perfect. Like it can have a tiny little bit of play, and then you can like clip off little bits of plastic if you need to, but you really want to try avoiding that as much as possible. So what I'm going to do, I've got a whiteboard marker here. I'm just going to do an outline of the size I need, and then I want to just extend my line, because what I'm going to have to do is score it. Now, I've done this before and it's a bit challenging at times, but effectively what I'm going to be doing is I've got my Stanley knife here. I'm going to be running my Stanley knife across here. Pretend that's a straight line and not a shonky wonky, but yeah, all across here and all across there, and then I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. And then what I'm going to do, which I'll record, is basically kind of like create like a up and down motion and kind of snap it off. So I'm going to do that off camera because it's quite precise work and I need to focus on it. So I'll be back in a jiff. Hello again. So just going to put down this towel because I'm going to get on top of this. So what I've done is I've scored kind of like rivets, I guess. I'm going to just align that perfectly with the edge of my table. All right. Now, I'm going to get my weight. This is engineering here. So what we got? Now I'm just going up and down with it. So there's a score on both sides, right? I've created a line, I've created a score, so there's a weak point. I mean, that's not too bad, right? Seems okay to me. Let's get rid of this. Pivot. Same sort of deal. We don't want to get our filthy fingerprints all over the acrylic. We want to get our weight close to the edge, right? Because we... That one was not as good. Shit. We've got quite a bit of extra. So, we might have to do some clipping off. So, basically there's a couple of... See that extra? So I'm going to have to do quite a lot of clipping, but the important thing is I've got, you know, like a perfect corner and perfect two edges, which kind of fit perfectly up against one side, and then the other side, there's a tiny little bit of play. So I'm going to do some clipping and we'll be back. Rightio, so I've managed to get it a bit straighter. Unfortunately, I got a little bit of a crack there, but it should still be close enough to perfect. I used my pliers and kind of snapped and snapped and snapped. It was a bit of a process. Now I'm going to move on to doing the backlights. So I just ordered these lights spare from China. What I'm going to do, take this sheet off and unplug me lights. Now, the old light strips have been there for years and years, so their adhesive is probably all fused. So I'll do my best to get it off kind of cleanly with the Stanley knife, but I might need to kind of scrape it off. You want to have it as flush as possible. The new lights will have like a double-sided tape adhesive, so you just kind of got to clear the area for that. So I'll go ahead and do that now. Rightio, so when I took out the old strips, I got to say they came out pretty easily with most of the adhesive on them, which is good. So they can go for the bin. I've got my new strips here, so they're identical as the old strips. And they've got like a blue adhesive tape. So what we want to do is just put them in. So this particular light strip change is not the most difficult in the world once you know what you're doing. I must have done about 10 light strip changes on this model before, mostly on 55 inch, some 65 inch, and I think a 75 inch, and this is not my first 43. It's a very, very common fault for this model, but the model itself has really good operating system, sort of good connection to the internet. It's really quite a nice TV once it's working properly, so it's definitely worth fixing. It's got a bit of scrap metal here I'm trying to get out. There we go. Ooh.
really is the perfect size to practice on or learn on or demonstrate on even. It's really easy to move around and this and that. So what I might do, excuse me, I might just plug it in and just confirm that the backlights are working normally. They are edge lights, but say backlights, you know, much of a muchness. Okay, so hopefully this just switches on. There you go. I've got the power in and out. Is that flickering? Or is that just my recording? Oh, that's just the recording. Boom, perfect. All right. Easy does it. So that's all good. Successful transfer. So what we want to do now, put our sheet back in. Try and make sure that you don't have any rogue hairs or any dust, because that'll show up on your screen. Look, it's not going to be 100% perfect, but it's certainly not going to be so significant that you don't want to use the TV, you know? So I'm going to bring the acrylic over and see how we go. Rightio, so I've got my acrylic sheet here. Now the most important part is that the flat end, so the end that you kind of kept from your original. Oh no, I've got some hairs here, so I might just try and get them out. So the flat end of the acrylic sheet from the original acrylic sheet that you kind of that you microfiber cloth that you kind of made this acrylic sheet from, that flat end has to go flush up against your lights. That's going to give you your picture, you know. But the rest can kind of be, because there's a little tiny bit of give, you know, in the border. I say that now, hopefully we're going to go back in without any issues. So here we are. This really is the moment of truth. If this just goes back in happily, then we're onto a winner. Otherwise I might need to make some further adjustments. There we go. Just aligning it. So this is probably the most difficult part. Is that going to go? It looks like it is. So it's a little bit too big on that side, unfortunately. Let's try this. That's going to go. So our clipped end, our top end is fine, but it looks like this side might be slightly too big. So there's a tiny little thin piece of plastic on this border part that kind of slots in between the acrylic sheet and the metal frame. And at the moment, oh, hold the phone. It looks like it's not going, but it might. I think we might need to make some micro adjustments, so I might just have a look, a bit of a closer look. We're back. So I've managed to make some slight adjustments, and now I've got my white frame sitting on. I'm going to grab the diffuser sheets. on. Very good. Make sure that sheet's sitting nicely within the defined parameters. Grab my screen. Now you want to make sure that your screen is 100% not going over the edge, sitting nicely within its frame. Otherwise, when you put your outer frame on, you will crush the screen, allegedly. I definitely haven't done that before multiple times. Right, so now I'm putting my outer back on. So it's a bit, has its pluses and minuses, this kind of clip scenario. Sometimes the clips break, but you don't really need all of them. Once a TV is kind of in position, it doesn't really go anywhere, so generally speaking, it's all right. Flip that over. So now we want to just put everything back together. So our screen has these little kind of slots where it slots in. I'm just going to sit down and make sure I don't fudge it up. What's going on with that? Oh, that would have been bent. So my metal's probably been bent out. You know what? Don't really need to do this. Just have it. Oh, actually, we probably do want to do that. Yeah, that one's a bit more raised. So I've just had the, obviously the process has at some stage bent my little bit of metal here. Just going to bend it up ever so slightly and then slots back in, no worries. Now we want our bit of metal trim here. I think it goes the other way, doesn't it? No. Back on. Cool, and we want to put our cables back on. Perfect. Now where's my, there you go. So this will link the main board to the infrared receiver. Go. And then speakers. Got the soft plastic cups. And I mean, usually you might not do all this before testing it, but for the sake of, I've already started. I may as well finish. Let's put these leg holders back on, or where the legs screw into. Radio, so I'm just going to plug our TV in and give it a bit of a test. Let's have a look, Ooh, that's promising. The question is, how are the edges? So because there's a little bit of, let's get to the front here. Can't even see that crack, eh? That's gone pretty damn well. Because it's a 43, it's quite forgiving. So that's done. Brilliant. Now I'm just going to put it back together, and yeah, I'll make a few closing comments on it. So here we are. I've given the TV a bit of a clean. Frankly, it looks brand new. So I reckon I should be able to get maybe $280, $250. I had to pay $40 for the lights, and I think I paid $20 for the TV in its broken condition. So not too bad. Saved it from the e-waste. This should be good now for another 5 years or so. So yeah, not a bad little TV. Still quite contemporary with the operating system, has all the apps. So if you're attempting this fix yourself, yeah, feel free to hit me up, any messages if you want to ask any questions. But I think the key points would be, when you're putting your new strips on, make sure that you get rid of any excess adhesive, because if those lights are not perfectly flush, you're going to have like an inconsistency of your light through your acrylic. And also, when you're cutting your acrylic, try and be as accurate as you can be with your snapping, because having to clip away at the acrylic is not ideal. But this model, as I found out, is a little bit forgiving. You know, you have a little bit of, your edges don't have to be absolutely perfect for it to look perfect. So yeah, good luck. Thanks. Hey, by the way, don't forget to like and subscribe.